Tonight, inside the UK's first ever drugs consumption room, hundreds of addicts in the East End of Glasgow will get access to a safe place to inject heroin and cocaine. But is it enough to tackle Scotland's drugs crisis?
I don't agree with that. I think you're just making things a lot worse, and you're just encouraging people to take drugs, and you're not helping.
The First Minister says it will help reduce deaths. Also tonight, 2 more lynx are illegally released into the wild in the Highlands following the capture of 2 yesterday. Police say they are linked. In sport, as Rangers fall 15 points behind Celtic, Philippe Clement insists he's still got the backing of the Ibrox board.
Absolutely amazing.
And is the nugget about to melt into history, or can a rescue bid be churned up? We have the story. I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Glasgow, Europe's drugs death capital, is just days away from opening the first and only place in the UK where addicts can bring their own illegal drugs and inject them under NHS supervision. It's a controversial decision made after a decade of debate and deadlock. The 3-year pilot will cost more than £7 million. In a moment, we'll hear from those who believe this money could be better spent on treatment and recovery. But first, our chief reporter Sharon Frew has been inside the facility called the Thistle in the East End of Glasgow, which officials believe will offer hope to hundreds of people.
So we'll speak to them about what needles they use, what syringes they use, and they'll be given a clean supply of single-use equipment.
Inside what has been named the using space. Here, people can bring their own supply of heroin and cocaine and inject the drugs while NHS staff supervise.
You'll see we've got mirrors here. These are very slightly tilted. That allows us to observe the injection without being too close to the person.
This will be open 365 days a year from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
We can't assist them physically with the injection, but we can support them. We can talk to them about what site they're using. Cocaine injecting in Glasgow just now is on the rise. There's many more people injecting cocaine, and that means they'll have many more injecting episodes, so we'd expect to see them through here several times a day. But the risk if they don't come to a service like this, because there's more injecting episodes, they've got worse wounds, they've got worse infections, and their health deteriorates.
Glasgow city centre and the East End has some of the highest rates of public injecting. Officials here are clear this different approach is specifically targeted at this population.
We think that there may be 400 to 500 individuals that we are particularly concerned about, individuals who've got very high rates of, for example, HIV and bloodborne virus transmission, as well as high mortality rates. So this service is targeted for them. We understand that they have very complex and deeply entrenched sort of problems.
The key area for us is the lounge area. This is somewhere we want people to spend a bit of time. Our harm reduction workers will be based here, our social workers will be available here. These services have been run for 30 years across the world, and there have been no deaths by overdose in a service. We've got nurses who are highly trained in resuscitation techniques. We've got naloxone on hand, we've got oxygen on hand. We will see overdoses regularly, but we will manage those overdoses and will prevent them becoming fatalities, and that's the difference.
The medical model adopted in Glasgow is based on similar facilities in Australia. The Thistle will cost £2.3 million a year to run.
We've got to see this as contributing towards the overall national mission on reducing drugs deaths. I don't think this is a silver bullet, but I think it will help. I think it will help to provide the support and the assistance, the medical intervention, the advice and the counselling that individuals who are dependent on drugs will require, and to help them on a journey to recovery.
Staff don't have the ability to test the drugs brought into the Thistle yet. Applications for a licence for a checking service have still not been approved by the Home Office. While on the premises, drug users will not be prosecuted for possession, a landmark decision made by Scotland's Lord Advocate. This does not mean other offending will be tolerated.
I do expect officers will search
but we'll go and search people who are attending or approaching Hunter Street to see if they are in possession of drugs, obviously using the current laws. The concern is though if they don't do that and somebody goes in, injects and then dies, then if there's been police contact at any point, then that officer would then come under serious criticism.
But that inevitably leaves a lot of grey areas about people going to the facility. The provision, the policy doesn't affect their legal liability. People distributing drugs in the area or further away doesn't cover that policy either. So this is one of those legal grey areas to try and address this really public health issue that we're facing.
The UK government has said it will not interfere with this pilot. Other cities are watching closely. The real test for the Thistle starts on Monday. Sharon Frew, STV News, Glasgow.
Across Scotland, 1,172 people died in 2023 as a result of their addiction to illegal substances. These statistics also showed Glasgow had overtaken Dundee as the drug death capital of Europe. Tackling the issue has been described as a national mission by the Scottish Government. Our reporter Ollie Dickinson is on Hunter Street in the East End of Glasgow tonight, where the Safe Consumption Room will open. Ollie.
John, I'm 5 minutes from Glasgow's Barrowlands. Just over the street behind there from me is a major supermarket chain. I could be in any back street in any city anywhere in the UK, but as you've heard there in Sharon's report, come Monday morning, this will be the site of one of the most radical interventions in health and drug policy anywhere in the country. The question now, though, is will it work? The Thistle site is already the place where some NHS addiction services are based. The heroin replacement service is based there, but will others who are not accessing those kind of treatments come here to the Thistle? Well, to find out, I've been asking campaigners, experts and those gripped by addiction in desperate need of help, and a warning that this package contains images of drug taking. Glasgow's historic Trongate is a street of contrasts. In equal measure, new and neglected, where homelessness and hotels sit side by side and drug use is rife.
The amount of drugs that are going about just now, you don't know what's in them. You don't know what you're taking.
Having moved on from heroin, Jim now injects cocaine.
I had my first OD this year. In fact, I've had 4 this year. A lot of people are getting blood clots in their legs through the cocaine, so you're ruining your body and you don't know what it's doing to your insides as well.
His story is nothing new for Street Connect and their volunteers like Scott. Routine patrols means he knows the people living on the streets and works with them to tackle addiction, homelessness and mental health problems.
You look a little bit like day, seems if you get a bit of life about you. The reality is if people could just stop using drugs on their own strength, then we wouldn't have this problem or this epidemic. And people really need people like myself and my colleagues to be on the ground and actually reaching out to them, actually offering them support, one-to-one support, actually directing them to services, other services that are in the town.
Peter Crikent's radical intervention more than 4 years ago was to set up an unofficial safe consumption space. The recovering addict used personal experience to challenge politicians, the justice system and the NHS with a converted ambulance at the heart of Glasgow's injection hotspot.
Having, visited these facilities in 6 countries, they're now legally operational in 18 countries. So I've visited a third of the countries that they're legally operational in, and of course ran one as well here in Glasgow for nearly a year, which supervised nearly 1,000 injections. What I'd like to see is not a facility ran which is over-institutionalised and over-medicalised.
Safe injection will cost £2.3 million per year. For some, that's money that could and should be spent on getting people into rehab.
If we're spending the majority of our treatment budget on these services that, supposedly make it safer for people to use drugs and not actually investing in services that help people get off drugs, well, we're just going to get more and more people using drugs and less people having the opportunity to get off drugs. I just think it's a devastating indictment of a city and a country that's gave up in trying to help people.
Back on the Trongate, Jim doesn't see the consumption room as his route out of addiction.
Opening a place where people can freely go in and inject their drugs whenever they want, I don't agree with that. I think you're just making things a lot worse and you're just encouraging people to take drugs.
Safe consumption divides even those who know it best. For now, it's clear. There are no quick fixes for Scotland's drug crisis.
So, Ollie, the facility will open on Monday. Then what happens?
Well, officials, the Scottish Government and the local community will be watching what happens here very carefully, not just how the site operates, but the policing of the surrounding area and any potential rise in drug-related activity. The pilot here has 3 years. If it works, there is absolutely a desire to see similar consumption rooms in other known drug hotspots. In terms of next steps, the Health Secretary Neil Gray wants to open drug testing facilities. He needs permission from the UK Government to do that. Aberdeen, Dundee and Glasgow all want one of those services. They see it as another tool which they believe will reduce harm from these deadly substances.
Ollie, thank you. Stuart Hogg is facing calls to be stripped of his MBE after being convicted of the domestic abuse of his estranged wife. The former Scotland rugby captain was sentenced to a community payback order for abusing his ex-partner over the course of 5 years. The First Minister, John Swinney, says the SNP Westminster leader Stephen Flynn's call for Hogg to be stripped of his MBE is reasonable and understandable. Searches are continuing tonight for 2 lynx spotted near Kingussie in the Highlands. The pair were seen in the same area as 2 more of the animals which were captured yesterday. Well, Nicola McCally is there for us tonight. So, Nicola, what's the latest?
Well, John, it's all a bit of a big cat mystery, really. Searches are continuing for these 2 lynx. Now, yesterday, as you said, 2 young animals were captured in the woods just behind me here, which is a few miles away from Kingussie. Now, they had been spotted late on Wednesday night, and animal experts from the nearby Highland Wildlife Park came to assist police, laid traps. The animals were caught in the early hours of yesterday, so everybody thought that was concluded, really. These 2 young animals were taken to Edinburgh Zoo where they'll be quarantined. Of course, big questions remained over where they had come from. And then this morning, another 2 lynx were spotted on wildlife capture cameras, again in these woods. So the hunt for these 2 is now continuing, again with the police and again with these animal experts. And they say that as darkness falls, that's probably the best time for them to try to catch these 2 animals. But it still remains a mystery as to where they have come from and why.
And tell us a bit about the animals, Nicola. Are they a threat to humans?
Well, theoretically, they are big cats and potentially they could be. Members of the public are certainly being asked not to approach them if they see them. But the main concern really is for other wildlife. And these cats are actually quite used to humans as well. So perhaps, it's for their own safety that they're caught sooner rather than later.
Nicola in the Highlands, thanks for joining us. Now wait for this. One of Scotland's generational delicacies is about to be history. For a century, the famous nugget was made by Waverley Bakery and became a household favourite. But production has stopped due to rising costs, and the original recipe is now down to the final few boxes. Our reporter Raheem Cham went out to get a taste for it before it disappears off the menu.
Unfortunately, the nugget is no more.
This is the news customers have been receiving as they try to order their favourite childhood treat. Colby's Ice Cream sold their last single nugget on Christmas Eve, drawing the curtains to a century-old dessert for the people of Mulgai.
People have been buying the nugget from us for years, daily almost. We have customers coming in every night, 2 single nuggets to take home for after their dinner. So, those are the customers that are going to be missing the most.
With nuggets off the menu, 71-year-old Graham has to settle for 2 ice cream cones.
It's a bit of the past that has gone. Well, I can't remember, probably about 8 years old. I remember my father buying it for me in Dundee, where they called it a slider.
So what is a nugget? It is a wafer laid with marshmallow and coated in chocolate. And there are 2 types for customers to choose. A single nugget, ice cream sandwich between a single wafer and a chocolate-coated marshmallow wafer. Then there's a double nugget for those who fancy 2 of the chocolate delights. While it may be a thing of the past in Milngavie, a West End cafe still has some for a lucky few.
Yeah, just the soft sort of marshmallow centre, the nougat centre in it. Yeah, it was lovely.
We all loved the nuggets, and it was one of my dad's favourites. So I don't understand why they're not, because I thought they were still popular.
It's sort of the original taste of it, you know. It was first class.
Yeah, they've been around for a long, long time. Ever since I can remember, 70 years ago as a child.
Wholesale buyer Scroller Ice Cream has the last 100 boxes in the entire country.
I've had to almost ration them a little bit, so if someone calls up asking for 100, you can only give them 5.
Even though 500,000 nuggets were sold last year, rising costs have brought production to a halt. Peter has found new manufacturers down south, but the recipe is different.
I would say they're slightly thinner, but there seems like there's more chocolate on them than these ones, so less marshmallow, more chocolate, same amount of wafer.
It feels absolutely surreal to get my hands on one of the very last double nuggets in Scotland, and it's my very first time having one. Absolutely amazing. Raheem Cham, STV News, Palmody.
Now Rahman is standing by with the sport.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith New Year Sale.
Good evening. Philippe Clement insists he's got the full backing of the Ibrox board. That's despite Rangers falling 15 points behind Celtic after their 1-1 draw against Dundee last night. Supporters are calling for Clement to be sacked. Meanwhile, Brendan Rodgers says he'd like to see the winter break return to help cope with what the Celtic boss describes as a gruelling fixture schedule. Making their feelings clear. After yet another abject performance from Rangers, their supporters let rip. And this time, it got personal. With the travelling fans telling Philippe Clement he's got to go.
Of course, they're unhappy today. We are also unhappy. We're all of us unhappy to lose these 3 points.
What support are you getting from the board? What assurances are you getting from the board that they still believe in this project and believe that it's going in the right direction?
Yeah, because we have every day talks about everything, about January, about next season, about everything.
So you're confident that they are still behind you 100%?
Yes, 200%, yes.
Rangers' defensive frailties were exposed after just 5 minutes. Oluwaseun Adewumi putting Dundee 1 up. Václav Černý, one of the few Rangers players who have performed well this season, equalised just after the half-hour mark. The 1-1 draw means Clement's side have won just 13 points from a possible 33 away from home this season. At Celtic, as they prepare for their 4th game in 9 days, Brendan Rodgers has back calls for the winter break to return.
It is a real heavy schedule, and that will have an impact on players' injuries because they're not robots. They're absolutely not. Like, players are now as fit as players have ever been in. Circuit breaker I think is good for everyone, and if there's ever a way for it to come in, then of course I'd be very supportive of that.
Nicholas Kuhn and Daiza Maeda will miss tomorrow's game away to Ross County, but are expected to be fit next week. News from the capital, and Neil Critchley has slammed leaks about Cammy Devlin's contract as unacceptable, adding the midfielder's release clause figure being reported is inaccurate. Meanwhile, David Gray says Rocky Bishiri and others soon-to-be out-of-contract players can play their way to earning new deals at Hibs. Jimmy Bothwick reports.
He's been one of Hearts' most consistent performers as they start to turn their form around. Today, Cammy Devlin was linked with clubs in England and America, with reports claiming the Australian has a release clause of less than £300,000.
Certain information that has been leaked is unacceptable. Gossip and transfer rumours is one thing, but leaking information that should be confidential to player, club, etc. goes beyond the line and doesn't help anybody. It wasn't accurate anyway, but say in terms of Cammy being linked to other clubs, we've not had anything from any other club regarding Cammy.
Liam Boyce is on the verge of signing for Derry City, while Kai Rolls is edging closer to a move to DC United. Loan signing Elton Kabangu is available to face Aberdeen at Pittodrie on Sunday. In form, Hibs could climb into the top 6 with a win over Motherwell tomorrow. And one man enjoying a run of games at Easter Road, Rocky Bushiri, is hoping to earn a new deal.
Well, Rocky's one of many players that are out of contract at the end of the season. You know, I've got a lot. And I think the best thing to be doing, whatever situation you are in personally, is to try and put in the best level of performance you can when called upon, and Rocky's been a great example of that. I've said it many times, he's had to be very patient this season, not played the minutes he would have liked early in the season, but he's done very well when he's came in. We're definitely benefiting from the level of performance he's putting in.
Jamie Borthwick, STV Sport.
St manager Stephen Robinson says he's keen to add 2 new faces to his squad before the end of January, with the signing of a winger looking very close. The Saints welcome Dundee United to Paisley tomorrow, looking to turn their recent form around. They've lost their last 3 games, but remain in the top 6.
We are obviously at the mercy of other clubs as well. We will look to move some players out. You know, we're probably top heavy in the forward area now. We'd like to add 2 more to it. One we are very close to completing in the forward areas, a wide player, and hopefully get 1 more in as well. So it would just strengthen the squad, and then I'll balance that up with boys going out.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith New Year Sale.
And in rugby, it's a big weekend for Glasgow Warriors and Edinburgh. Glasgow are at home to Racing in the Champions Cup tonight, while Edinburgh are away to French side Van in the Challenge Cup tomorrow. That's all we spoke tonight. Have a great weekend. See you again next week. The floor is yours, John.
Thank you, Raman. Thank you. Well, another freezing day and the coldest night in the UK, with Altnahara in Sutherland dropping to minus 14.5 degrees centigrade. Here's Sean to tell us if it's about to warm up.
Wet by the coast, with a high chance of sun and splashing. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. Still in the grips of that extreme cold tonight. We could get temperatures, wait for this, down to minus 20 in parts of the Highlands. Possibly our coldest January night for 15 years. Although we start to see a change as we go through the weekend. Milder air coming in. Slightly less cold around the west coast and also the Hebrides, but still another very, very cold one further inland, especially as we head towards the southeast, South Lanarkshire, the borders, Dumfries and Galway, and also across Stirlingshire and Perthshire. Temperatures locally down to about minus 8, minus 9 degrees. Now tomorrow, look at this, we've got some rain coming into the west. A wee while since we've seen that, because we've got milder air coming in. Just going to pause this about lunchtime tomorrow, because look at this, as the rain bumps into the colder air, I think there's a chance of us seeing a little bit of snow, some wintry flurries for a time around lights of Glasgow, Renfrewshire, Dumbartonshire, inland parts of Ayrshire and also inland parts of Argyll and Bute tomorrow. It shouldn't really come to too much though, because it turns back to sleet and rain later on as that milder air continues to move in, and it should be quite light and showery as well. But there is the risk of a little bit of snow in places tomorrow as that rain moves in. On Sunday we get a proper push of milder air, temperatures about 7 to 10 degrees, windier weather as well. So a windy day, and there will be some rain around. Monday the temperatures go even higher. You can forget the minus 10s, minus 15s. Into next week I'll be talking about plus 11 to plus 13 degrees, but rain, especially in the west. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A 14-year-old dog is recovering well following a rescue mission to save her from a sewer. Maisie, who's deaf, became trapped in an underground pipe after falling through an uncovered drain. Amy Fletch reports.
There's been no shortage of treats and cuddles for Maisie after the week she's had. On Tuesday, she became trapped in a sewer after falling down an uncovered drain hole while on a walk in Pittencrieff Park, sparking a major rescue operation including 5 fire crews, Mines Rescue Service and a mini digger. But after 9 hours, her owner Margaret was finally able to hold the Cocker Spaniel in her arms.
It really was. It was horrific. I mean, she's my dog, she's my saviour, she's my best friend, you know. She's just fab. But she made it, she's out. She's also 14 and a half, You know, you don't know how many more days, weeks, months you're going to have with her. I have to be realistic with that. And she won't be around forever. But, you know, thank goodness that she has. The thought of her being left in that hole was just horrible.
Fife Council has since secured the drain opening at the park and is inspecting the area to ensure it is safe. And while Maisie might still need a few more baths to get rid of the smell, Margaret says she's grateful to the emergency services for getting her best friend back. Amy Flett, STV News, Dunfermline.
Great news. And finally, how's this for a surprise? Pop megastar Ed Sheeran paid a visit to a music charity in Muirhouse in Edinburgh today. The multi-time Grammy winner is part of the launch of his foundation to support young musicians.
Me and Alex thought it was Taylor Swift, but then we heard it was Jin. He was small and ginger, and we were like, it's Ed Sheeran.
Shocked. Yeah, it was crazy. Absolutely shocked. And Maxwell got a hug. Maxwell did get a hug.
I didn't get to shake Ed Sheeran's hand. Like, biggest regret of my life.
So sad.
I don't really know Ed, but when one of my friends told me he was like really famous, I literally was shocked.
I bet the kids thought it was perfect. You're welcome. We'll see you next week. Good night.